everybody, and welcome back to the Empathic Leader, where we talk all things empathy, emotional intelligence, and leadership. I am Dr. Melissa. I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment so that we can keep the conversation going. And by the way, as of this week, which by the time this launches will be a little farther out, my book hit bestseller in 4 countries, which proves that people want this conversation. We hit #1 Amazon bestseller in the US. Again, this is the second time, in the UK, in Australia, and in Canada. So all English-speaking countries. I'm so excited that people are in on this conversation. They want to know. And it also proves that empathy is not a national phenomenon. It is a global phenomenon. Now we just need to keep getting the word out there. So my book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere online you buy books. There is a Kindle, hardcover, softcover, and within the next month, there will be an audiobook version. So let's get started. I want to take some time today and talk about empathy as a strategic leadership tool. Because what if the leadership strategy that could save you the most time, money, and banging your head against the wall isn't in another playbook? What if it's something you've had in your back pocket all along? Empathy matters now more than ever, with generational friction, with the advent of AI, with big tech, with big data. There's constant change, and it's coming at us faster and faster. So we need to be able to link in to the things that make us human, to the things that actually allow us to connect. Remember, empathy is skills-based, data-driven, and outcomes-oriented. This is not soft. This is something that definitely belongs in business, and this is something that you can use every single day. Let's take a moment and actually think about it. How empathy works, how empathy becomes data-driven, results-oriented. I was working with a director, and he needed to go into this place and change the culture. That's what he was tasked with doing, which when you're in some place and you're trying to change culture from the middle, knowing that culture drips down from the top, that can be really difficult to do. But he was ready to do it. He walked in, he was ready to try and change his culture, and he asked me what I thought he should do. And I said that if he really wanted to change the culture, especially considering how the other boss had supposedly been, he needed to humanize himself with his people. And that meant building his know, like, and trust factor. So what I suggested he do is at least once a day, he go and make his rounds, meaning that he needed to go and see his people, walk through the halls, get a cup of coffee. He didn't need to sit and talk to them for hours and hours, but they needed to see him, and they needed to know that he cared enough just to see what they were doing and how things were going. 20 minutes a day. And as a bonus, he got to get up from his computer and walk around, because burnout in leadership is a real issue. We don't want to burn out our good leaders. We want to keep them in a spot where they can thrive as well. So that's what he did. First day out of the box, he started walking around to see his people. Strangely enough, after a few days, they kind of started to get to know him. Now, I don't mean super tight, warm relationship was going to be invited to all the barbecues, but I do mean that they saw what he was doing and respected that. After a while, they kind of got to like him a little bit, at least insofar as they understood that he had good intentions and he was really trying to create better leadership, to create a better organization for them all, which led them to trust him. Once they trusted him, they started bringing ideas to him for better innovations, better efficiencies. Now, I understand this sounds like something that just happened really fast, but his people had been thinking about ways to be able to do better efficiencies, have better innovation, create a better microcosm where they worked for years in some cases. They already knew, boots on the ground, what their work environment was like. They just either hadn't trusted the person who was there before or had their ideas shot down or ignored. But now that they had this guy in there that they trusted, they started coming to him with these things. And they started showing results because he was able to raise their productivity. He was able to raise what they were able to do in a day. Now, as a sideline to that, when he walked in, his employee engagement scores were in the 40s. Within 90 days, they were in the 90s, which also leads into better productivity. And with better productivity comes better profit. It all goes together. Soft skill, hard results. It's really important to begin to integrate this into our organizations now. And it doesn't matter if you're at a mid-level management, because if you can create this within where you're at, you have a chance of maybe other people in the organization seeing it as well. Let's give you 3 clear takeaways that you can take out of here today, leaders. Let's talk strategy and what you can do with empathy as a skill. The first thing to keep in mind is that empathy saves money. Anything it doesn't actually give in terms of profit, it helps stanch the hemorrhaging before it gets to the bottom line. Let's talk employee attrition. Because right now, even with the market being what it is, employees, if they're pushed far enough, long enough, leave. And replacing one employee, according to the Society of Human Resource Management, takes 90 to 200% of their wages. And that's not including institutional knowledge. That's not including how long it takes to get someone else in the spot. That's not including what it takes to have everybody else sitting in on these interviews. Just making a difference in employee attrition. Now, remember how I said that we also don't want to burn out our leaders? And having continued employee attrition and always having to retrain and re-interview and replace people is hard on leaders. And in order to replace a leader, in the same SHRM study, takes 1.5 to 2 times their salary and all of the institutional knowledge and everything that goes with them, anything they've built, anything they could continue to bring to the institution. You're losing that human capital, and you lose it all the way up. Empathy boosts productivity. People work better when they feel seen and understood. The beautiful thing about empathy is that when it's going well, it goes in both directions. So if you have a leader who's showing empathy, who's understanding and connecting, who's making these inroads, and the employee knows that they mean well and they're intending well and they're really trying, the empathy comes back to them. And pretty soon you've got a microcosm in a culture of empathy. So what if these people don't feel seen and understood? In 2024, Gallup's engagement stats for employee engagement said that only 32% of U.S. workers were engaged. That's 1/3, and only 21% globally. These disengaged workers accounted for $1.9 trillion with a T dollars in lost productivity. And that's according to Business Insider. That's not my opinion. That's according to one of the trade mags. And this productivity number is dropping. Quiet quitting, quiet cracking, presenteeism, all of these little titles. That's what those titles mean in hard numbers. Empathy drives innovation. Aside from that know, like, and trust factor, teams take creative risks when they feel safe. When they trusted this director to be able to talk to them, when they felt safe, they brought those innovations forward. And next thing you know, it fed right into the bottom line. Innovation is not born from fear. It's born from trust. So if you actually do want to link it into profit, productivity, and innovation, that's how you do it. You create that know, like, and trust factor. You humanize yourself so your people understand. And then you move it forward. Here's the big thing that you have to remember. The culture always drips down from the top. So if you're going to talk empathy, but you're not going to actually do it, just don't. We did an episode not that long ago talking about how the people who jumped on the empathy bandwagon because it was very popular thanks to people talking about it. People like Simon Sinek and Brene Brown. Seth Godin. People who really understand within that space are talking about how important empathy is. So a lot of places jumped on that bandwagon, only to find out that because they didn't really do it, they lost profit, productivity, and innovation. So if you don't really mean it, then be authentic to who you are and don't pretend, because people will know. And there's a lot of leaders that do feel empathy doesn't belong in the leadership sphere. I would argue that point. But reality is reality. You've got to create that culture that comes down from the top. Leaders, you are always on stage. Someone is always watching, and someone is always taking their cues from you. And if they see you are creating an empathic workplace, they will go along with that. They will lead in the same way. Just as quickly, if it's not an empathic workplace, they'll pick up on that as well. So what kind of practical applications could we put into use today? Like just little things you could start adding into what you do as a leader. Here's a thought. Try a 60-second curiosity pause. We talk about empathy and communication, right? About how empathy feeds into communication and about how we lose in this country $1.2 trillion. See, there's a T again, $1.2 trillion to bad communication. We also talk about how part of that is because of an overload of communication. Because we have this huge quantity of communication, but the quality isn't as good. AI hasn't necessarily been very helpful with this. 1.2 trillion. That's a lot. You can buy an island in the Bahamas for less than that, and it would probably be of better use. They're calling what we do now the unofficial 4-day work week because we lose 7.5 hours of productivity per person per week due to bad communication. So next time you're wondering and you really want to be able to communicate well and understand what's going on, take a 60-second pause. Ask a genuine question, and then don't say anything. See what answer you get. When I was a musician, this is probably going to surprise some people. The general rule of thumb was that in music, silence is 80% of the time, and the other 20% is making noise. Listening should be the same. 80% silence, 20% making noise. Another practical application, start tracking emotional KPIs. Start tracking trust. Start tracking knowing and liking, engagement, collaboration, and track it with the same seriousness as financial metrics. I have another director who recently got a lot of employee engagement stuff back for his organization as a whole. And they said what they thought, that they didn't feel they were being led well, that they didn't feel they were being heard, that they didn't feel that maybe they were able to get out of their leaders what they should. And what the leaders did, not this director, of course, because he's working with me, but everybody else, took this stack of engagement scores and put it to the side. They were never addressed again. If you can't quantitatively track these things, that's understandable because not everything is measurable. And there's a lot of things that aren't measurable that we should be keeping track of. But all the same, we need to actually be aware, understand, and connect with our employees on these levels, on these emotional KPIs. And finally, the one that anyone who's listened to me already knows is you've got to practice self-empathy first. I know my leaders are very highly driven, are very ambitious, are very highly self-actualized. These are people that are gunners, and they're there because they know how to dig in and work hard. And a lot of them are heading for burnout because of it. They don't show themselves empathy. They do not understand and connect with themselves. And in my next episode, I'm actually going to give my 4-step framework to self-empathy. But you've got to show it to yourself first. Start by noticing the self-judgment. Oh, I'm not working hard enough. Oh, I really botched that. Yeesh. How could I have let that slip? Shift to self-awareness. Understanding where you are in the microcosm of where you're at and how things can move forward within you. Because if you don't understand empathy for yourself, how do you expect to show it for anybody else? Encourage experimentation, and that includes with you employing self-empathy. You don't have to overhaul everything all at once, but start with a small step. Empathy is not soft. I know some of you probably are going to get tired of me saying this, but that's all right because I'm not going to stop saying it. It is not fluffy, and it is a soft skill that drives hard results. It belongs in our organizations. It is not all about feeling, and it relates directly to strategy. Imagine your team working not just harder, but happier because they know you understand them. And then you get empathy working in both directions. Because what leader couldn't use a little bit of empathy now and again? Create that culture of empathy. Start at the top, let it drip down. And as always, if you want to explore how empathy can transform your results, I am here. And whether it's in my book or in my podcast, in some of my speaking, I'm going to be in Milwaukee and in Cincinnati in October, or whether it's just a conversation. My goal is to get this word out as far as possible. Empathy is real, it's strategic, and it's not going anywhere. And those leaders who can learn how to effectively harness it are going to be the ones that own the future of leadership. So let's make that person you. Thank you so much. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Let's keep this conversation going. And until next time, let's use a little empathy.